Welcome to another coding tutorial, and in today's video I'm going to show you how to connect different bodies in matter.js. The way that we're going to be connecting these bodies is using another module within matter.js called Constraint. So this video is actually a part of a series of videos where I talk about the matter.js physics library. So be sure to check out the playlist if you want to get a better understanding and look at other examples. In this video, we're not only going to touch on just Constraint, but also another module called MouseConstraint that allows us to use the mouse to actually pull the objects around. So before we start diving into the Constraint module, what I want to do is that I want to start from scratch and actually draw a ball on our sketch. First, we need to come to this arrow here, go to index.html, and you're going to copy and paste the link here. You can just come to my code and copy. And this is how we link the matter.js library into our P5 sketch. And at the current time of the recording, the most updated version is 0.20.0. All right. Next, we're going to start by doing object restructuring to access the different modules within the matter.js library. So let's start by declaring constant, and then the different modules that we want to extract. So engine, body, bodies, composite, and then two more, render and runner. And then we're going to set it to equals to matter. Is it render or renderer? So let's go to matter.js website. So I'm going to actually be going back and forth with the documentation page here. So the module is called render. All right, great. Click run. Nothing happens, which is great, no error. So we're not actually going to be using the draw function. We're going to be using the built-in render and runner modules. And then instead of create canvas here, we're going to start with no canvas. All right, so the next thing that we want to do is that we want to declare a variable. Let's call it engine. And then we're going to set engine to engine.create. And this is how we create an engine, the physics engine. All right, nothing happens. We have not rendered anything yet. So next, we're going to declare a variable called render. And I'm going to set render to render.create. And then inside here, we're going to put in a few options. The first one is going to be called element, and this is where we're going to be rendering whatever we're going to draw. So we're actually going to do it on document.body. The next thing is going to be engine, which is the engine that we just created here. And then I'm going to put in options. This is going to be for the width, and I'm going to declare the size, width equals to 400 and height equals to 400. Click run. Nothing happens, but we already have created a render. So next, we actually want to draw or run the render. All we have to do is put in render.run and then put in an argument of render. Ta-da! All right, we just have a black background of size 400 by 400. The next thing is, how about we declare a variable called runner, and then runner is going to be set to runner.create, and then we're going to do runner.run. Then we need to put in two things. The first thing is runner, and then the second thing is engine. All right, nothing happens because we don't have any bodies inside our piece of sketch. So why don't we do that? So I'm going to declare a body, and let's put it here. So body is going to be part of the bodies module, and it's going to be a circle. And it takes in a total of 3 arguments here, which is the x and y coordinate of where the center of the circle is going to be, and then the third one is going to be the radius. So how about I put it at 100 by 100, and then let's do a radius of 30. but nothing is showing up, and that is because we need to add the body into the world. And the world is a part of the composite module, and it is the most top level composite. So we're going to do composite, and then we're going to add. The first argument is which part of the system are we adding it to, and we're going to add it to the world. So engine.world, and then this is a composite like I just said. And then the second argument is what are we going to add? We're going to add a body. All right, then the ball has some physics added to it, right? Which is just gravity. Perfect. So before we move forward, how about we make a ground? And ground is going to be part of the body's module, but it is going to be a rectangle. And we're going to provide a total of 4 arguments. The first 2 are the x and y coordinates of the center of the rectangle. Let's do 200, which is half of the width. And then how about we put it like here? Let's do 300. Actually, 350. So not all the way to the bottom. And then we need to give it the width and the height. So let's do the width of 400 so it fits exactly the size of the canvas. And then let's do a height of 10. And then we need to not forget to add it to the world. So we're going to add it with this body here. So you need to put it inside a bracket as an array. So put in ground. And then as you can see there, the ground is also falling. So we want to make sure that we need to provide the 5th argument, which is an option. So let's put it inside the curly bracket, and then let's put is static and then set it to true. So the default value is false. So if we put it as true, then it is fixed. And then as you can see here, we have a fixed ground. Perfect. So now let's make another circle, another ball, and then we're going to connect it with the constraint module. So let me just quickly do that. How about we call this body A, and then let's do another one called body B. And I'm just going to copy and paste this, body A and body B. And how about I move it a little bit to the right, and then let's bring it a little bit up here. Let's give it a bit of a bigger size. How about that? And make sure that you add it to the world. All right. So as you can see here, they're not connected to each other yet. Let's go to the constraint module. So here. So the constraint module contains methods for creating and manipulating constraints. Constraints are used for specifying that a fixed distance must be maintained between 2 bodies. The stiffness of constraints can be modified to create springs or elastic. All right, so let's start with just creating a constraint. So we're going to put in constraint.create, and then there are different options that we can put in. So let's look at that. So there are a bunch of different options. There's constraint.bodyA, which is the first possible body that this constraint is attached to. And there's body B, which is the second body. So we're actually going to define body A and body B as the 2 circles that we just created. And then there's damping, right? Damping and stiffness that we can also declare. We can also declare the length that connects the 2 bodies. All right. And then there's this point A and point B, which I'll come back to this later. Let's start with body A and body B. So I'm going to define constraint as a variable here. And then down here, how about we set, actually let's put it before ground. Constraint equals to constraint.create. And then we want to put in body A to be equals to body A, right? Which is this one. Body B is going to be equals to body B. And if I click run, constraint, oh, don't forget to add it to this line of code here, right? All right, so they are not connected yet. And that is because we also need to add constraint to the composite here. So let's put it here, constraint. All right, so now there is this line that connects these two bodies together. So let's see what else we can do. What if we do length and let's do 10. Whoa, what's happening here? We're trying to connect these two bodies with a length of 10, but the size of the radius of these two bodies are much bigger, so it doesn't really work. How about we do 150? All right, and we can also set the stiffness. So if we do 0, it ranges between 0 and 1, so let's try 1. Can't really tell with the configuration that we do right now, but if we do damping and then set it to 0.5, maybe if I set this a little bit closer, set this to 0.5. All right, so you can see that the stiffness is lower now. All right, so you can play around with these values, but with this configuration, you can't really see much how stiffness and damping values really impact the two bodies. So how about we actually set the first body to be fixed is static equals to true. Okay. All right, so I want to add another one. So let's do body C, and then we're gonna set body C to, how about start at a different location. Let's do a smaller size like that. And this is the constraint between A and B, so let's call it constraint AB. And then I'm gonna declare one more called constraint BC. So this one is AB. We want to add body C here as well. And then what is constraint BC is going to be? So I'm just going to copy and paste this. And we're going to change this to B and C. If we do length of 70 maybe. And we need to add it to here as well, BC. All right, let's try it. Constraint BC. Oh, here, C. All right, so now we have 3 bodies that are connected in a chain with each other. But as you can see here, what do you notice? We are basically copying and pasting the code quite a bit. So it's fine with 3 bodies, but what if we want 10, right? We don't want to be creating a bunch of bodies this way and then a bunch of constraints. So there's a fix. If you come back to the documentation here, what we can do is that we can actually, let's see if it's part of this. We can actually use composites and use the method called chain to connect them together. So I'll show you exactly how to do it. So as you can see here, it's a composites.chain, and then it asks us for the composite, which composite it's going to be. So we need to create a new composite. And then you can see here, X offset A, Y offset A, X offset B, and Y offset B. So this is exactly what I talked about earlier within the constraint module. So if you come down to properties, there are these 2 properties, point A and point B. It is a vector that specifies the offset of the constraint from center of the constraint dot body A if defined, otherwise a world space position. So the default value is 0, 0. So what I'm going to show you is, first, because it's a vector, I'm going to also add this module here, vector, and then right here between A and B, I want to put in point A, and I'm going to set it to vector A, which I need to also define. So let vector A to be equals to vector dot create. So the default value is 0, 0, right? So if I do this, nothing happens. It's still this point here, but let's put it at 10, 0. As you can see here, it's offset 10 pixels to the right. So if I do 10, 10, so it's coming down here, right? But I don't want to actually do that, but I want to show you what are these offsets value. So we're going to actually put them as 0, 0, 0, 0. All right, so I'm going to delete this, and yeah, we don't need this. So let's delete it for now. But we actually want to add composites, right? And then I'm going to declare a new variable. Let's call it chains. And chains is going to be a new composite. So we have world, we add everything to the world right now, but what we're trying to do right here is that I want to actually create a new composite that actually contains all of the balls. And then we're gonna use the method within composites class called chain to actually chain them up together. And this way we don't actually need to create any of these constraints. So let me show you. All right, so first we're going to create, so set chains to be equals to composite dot create. All right, and then now that we have created this, I'm going to then do composite dot add. And we're adding it the same way that we add here, right? We're adding it to this new composite called chains, and we're adding what? These bodies. So body A, body B, and body C. And as you can see, I'm not adding these constraint variables here. So how about I comment these out? And then inside world here, we don't need these anymore. We just put in chains. And then click run. Nope. Oh, we added to the world, but we have not chained them together like I told you I would. So we need to do composites. So this is what we need to do, right? We need to do, let's go to composites, not composite, composites dot chain, and then let's just copy this actually. Composites dot chain, and then this composite will be chains, right? The one that we just created. These offset, like I told you, we're gonna set it at 0, 0, 0, 0. And this options is actually basically the options that we have created here, like stiffness and damping. What if we don't set options yet, just to see what happens? I think this should work. All right. So as you can see here, the chains doesn't have like the springy thing anymore. So I guess this is the default. And what if we put in options and we set options to be equals to, maybe we do just stiffness of 0.5. All right, and then we could also do length. As you can see here, we cannot actually vary the length once it's in here, but yeah, so let's do 70. So they all have the same length. But the magic that this provides is that we can create a bunch of bodies easily. So let's do that. I'm gonna come back here. Instead of doing all of these, let's just comment this out, and we just need bodies, an array. And then how about we set the number to 10, and let's set a radius of all of them to be, how about 20. Then in here, instead of creating these, right, we're going to comment these out as well. And then I'm going to use a for loop that say let I equals to 0, I less than num, I plus plus, and then we're going to be creating these circles using bodies dot, no, actually we need to add it to the bodies array. So bodies of I equals to bodies dot circle. And then for the X and Y location, how about we just put them across the canvas here. So let x to be equals to, I want to start it a little bit to the right. So let's do, how about 20? Then let's add it to I times, space out by 20 maybe. And then let y to be equals to a random value between 0 and 40. So we put in x and y, and then the size will be radius, right? And I also want the first one to be static actually. So how about we put an if statement that say if I equals to 0, then we want this value true to be true. So this the static value. So I'm going to declare it as fixed. So fixed will be true if I equals to 0. So if it's the first one, and else fixed will be false. And then we just put it at the end here. So is static will be equals to fixed. All right, so in the chain, in the composite here, what we need to add is bodies array, right? And we do not need to put in any constraints anymore. I think that should be everything. Let's try it. Ta-da! But why is it coming kind of like over the ground? And that is because it went over here, and our ground actually only has the width of 400. All right, we can set this to be maybe the length to be smaller. Okay, not bad. So another thing that would be fun to do is that what if I want my mouse to actually be able to kind of pull over this piece of chain, right? So we need to actually look at additional modules within here. So which one are we going to look at? We're going to look at mouse and MouseConstraint. So actually, let's look at MouseConstraint first. So the matter.MouseConstraint module contains methods for creating mouse constraints. Mouse constraints are used for allowing user interaction, providing the ability to move bodies via the mouse or touch, which is exactly what we want to do. So we're going to use the method create and provide engine and options. And the options that we're going to provide is actually the one called mouse. And to do this, we also need to create the mouse instance. So we also need the mouse module, and we're going to create it using mouse.create and put an element. And element is the same thing as element when we use the render module, which is where the canvas is. So let's do all of that. Start with adding in mouse module and mouse constraints. All right, and then I'm going to declare two more, mouse and mouse constraint. And then in here, we're going to do what are we going to do? So mouse constraint is equals to mouse constraint dot create, right? And we want to put in engine and options, but the options that we want to put in is actually mouse. And then what is mouse? So mouse is going to be mouse dot create, and we're going to put in the element, which is going to be the same as this, which is document dot body. I think that's it. Okay, click run. Cannot pull yet, and that is because we need to also add it to the world. We're going to add mouse constraint to the world, which is here, right? Let's add it at the end here. Ta-da! Ta-da! Wow. All right. Okay. This is super fun to play with. Perfect. So you get the basic of how we can connect different bodies together, as well as using the mouse to actually play around with the bodies. So before we end this video, what I want to do is that I want to actually not use the built-in render and runner modules in matter.js, but I actually want to be drawing stuff on p5. So I'm going to actually duplicate this. And then let's set this to p5. And why do I want to do this? Because we are comfortable with drawing stuff in p5. So after we refactor this code, you can actually build on top of this. First, what we're going to do is that we're going to delete render and runner here. I'm actually going to delete all of the stuff that I comment here. We don't need these two variables either. And instead of no canvas, we're going to put in create canvas of size 400 by 400. We don't need this whole thing. We don't need this. And delete all of this. Okay. And we don't need this. What do we need? We need the trusty function draw, right? And let's put in background of color gray. All right, so to actually update the engine, we also need to write this piece of code, engine.update engine. But if you click run, nothing happens yet because we have not drawn anything on our sketch. So how about I use the print function to show you the first body. So the bodies of 0. If I click run now, you don't actually see anything. But if I extract the position, then you can see that it gives us the X and Y position of the bodies, right? So what we want to do is that we want to use the for loop, I equals to 0 to I less than bodies dot length, I plus plus, and then we're going to use an ellipse function. Takes in 4 arguments, right? The X and Y location, which is here. So how about we declare X to be equals to bodies of I dot position dot X, and then Y to be equals to bodies of I dot position dot Y, and then set X and Y here. And then the third and the fourth argument is the diameter, so radius times 2 and radius times 2. Okay. Perfect. Okay, and the mouse still works. Now let's do 2 more things. First, let's draw the lines between each of these bodies. So how about we can just do a line, use the line function, right, and provide 4 arguments, which are the X and Y coordinates of the center of this one, the first one, and then the second one. But if we loop through from I equals to 0 to I less than bodies dot length, the last one will not have anything. So what we're going to do is, what if I just easily just write the if statement that says if I is less than bodies dot length minus 1. So just to ensure, right? And we'll put line in here. And then how about I declare these as x1, and then we declare 2 more, x2 and y2. And I'm going to copy and paste this. So x2 and y2 will be I plus 1. So the next one over, right? I plus 1. And we're going to connect x1 and y1 with x2 and y2. If I is less than, oh, maybe you just can't see it. All right, because it's it's behind the circles. Maybe we put this up here. All right, and then now all we need to do is how about we draw ground, and it's going to be outside of the for loop here. So it's going to be a rectangle, and it is going to be at width divided by 2 and 350, right? And then the size is 400, which is width, and then 10. and it is going to have a rect mode of center. Ta-da! And this still works. Perfect. Alright, so this is it for this video, and in the next video I'm going to show you how we can build off of this sketch. We're going to actually create a bridge, and then we're going to integrate it with another library called p5.js to make an interactive sketch like this. Alright, so I hope that you enjoyed this one and stay tuned for the next video.